Oh, well, would you look at the month. I have a feeling most of you know what time it is. It's been a hot minute since I've made anything directly about FNaF, but with the Ruin DLC coming out July 25th, it's got me thinking about what Steelwool could possibly bring to the table this time around. Although it looks like they've been taking their time with this one, I am very curious to see if they've actually learned since the launch of Security Breach last year. Don't get me wrong, I commend Steelwool for continuing to support the game, and it's much more playable now than it was when it first launched. But looking back to my initial predictions for the game the night before it launched, I was honestly kinda upset with how many negative predictions seem to have come true in that video's wake. People have practically said everything you could say regarding the issues of this game since it released, so I won't get too much into it myself. But I fear these lingering issues possibly coming back to bite in the DLC as well. With how much discourse there's been around this DLC, of people claiming that it will fix everything bad about the base game, to people already claiming Steelwool have not learned anything, and this is going to be as big of a dumpster fire as the base game's initial launch, it's made me really think about how either or could honestly be a solid prediction. So, just like everything building up to the initial launch of Security Breach, should the inevitable launch of Ruin scare you? If I'm being real, I'd say that we should be a bit more cautiously optimistic this time. And let me explain as to why. But first...
I've been Dags?
Has this ever happened to you? Why, of course it has.
Or it at least will.
The Dags plush by Own Age. It is soft, throwable, and
Hiding in your walls right now.
act fast, as this campaign only has 15 days to reach its end goal. So go to ownage.com, or go to the link provided in the pinned comment or description to order one today. Thank you very much to Ownage for making this a possibility, and we hope to see one of our many little guys in your home.
Going back to the end of 2021 where I finished up my first ever playthrough of this game, my biggest issue I had, and an issue that I still have with this game, is that the mall did not feel fun to explore. Sure, the set dressing looked pretty and the environment designs in Ruin seemed to be spot on too, but the very limited options you had regarding actually doing attractions in the mall really felt like a punch right into the gut when I first played it. It's like going to the mall with your mom as a young kid, but being told you're not allowed to go to the arcade and you proceed to spend what feels like an eternity in JCPenney. And that's what's got me worried and also kinda relieved about this DLC. Side content seems like it's just going to be non-existent again, because I'm not sure how they're going to make this new setting less linear than what was already presented to us in the base game. And I honestly think a lot more linear and clear structure could work here if they commit to it, which I really hope they do. Security Breach's biggest problem was that it was so linear when it very clearly did not want to be at all. There is so much proof that there was meant to be a lot more interactivity in the mall at one point, but it was ultimately canned, most likely to get the game out a little earlier than it probably should have. Although this setting very clearly seems like it's going to focus a lot more on that same linearity, I think the mall's destroyed and unusable state is going to make the flow of the gameplay feel a lot more natural this time around. Regardless, would some side content be appreciated in this DLC? Absolutely, but I wouldn't hold your breath on it. The original gameplay of Security Breach really just came down to a lot of travel level and evading with very rare set pieces. And if there's any gameplay touch-ups that they could give to this DLC, I think it would certainly be that. Steel Wool is really good at making you really feel the spectacle of the Pizzaplex, but it sacrificed compelling gameplay in the process in a lot of scenarios. There also weren't that many puzzles incorporated into the game, and when there were, it was things like Mazer Size, which is genuinely the worst puzzle I have played in any video game ever. I mean that with zero exaggeration. It'd be nice to see if Ruin uses the abandoned setting to its advantage, having obstacles blocking paths that you may have previously been savvy to and whatnot, therefore forcing you to find a new way around this version of the Pizzaplex. Some new areas as well would obviously also be very appreciated. In the trailer, we get a much better glimpse of the outside of the Pizzaplex, and it'd be cool if we actually do get to see some outdoor attractions at one point. There were a bunch of doors in the base game that had a higher clearance to access than we could have ever actually gotten, so I really hope Steel Wool opens up at least a few of those while traversing. Since it seems like we're getting new items in this game as well, I really hope they aren't catch-all items like the Phaser Blast was in the base game, because after getting that item, it made the game a lot less fun. We seem to have like this hacking device that we could plug in to do puzzles, which can be cool if executed right or possibly be incredibly boring. I'm just hoping it's not going to be the same puzzle over and over again. Devices like these in games have a tendency to throw very menial puzzles at you that boil down to the exact same thing every time. I get it's probably not a major focus of the game, but some variety in things like this would be very nice to see. Alright, we should talk about character predictions now, I guess. Has anyone noticed the very big lack of Freddy in, all of the promotional material for this game? I think we see him under rubble once in this shot here, but that seems to be about it for now. It's really strange, since he was such an integral part of the base game. It makes me wonder if he may potentially serve a larger purpose now than originally, or if he's just being very heavily sidelined in this DLC. Being able to pilot an animatronic seems like something you cannot do at all in this DLC because of obvious reasons. Maybe this mask we see at the end will serve as a replacement? I don't know. The Ruined character designs look really good in this as well. Roxy in particular looks awesome, and I can't wait to see her in the game. We have this one part of the trailer where we are face to face with her, which makes me believe we might be allied with some of the animatronics this time around. If so, I'm really curious to see how they pull that off. Probably with that device we see throughout the trailer, but we can't be too sure yet. The Sun and Moon hybrid we get a glimpse at looks pretty cool, and I hope his segment is better than the one that we had previously, because the daycare was not fun in base Security Breach. Monty is definitely the most messed up out of the bunch, but my god does he have a gnarly jump scare. This honestly may be my new favorite in the series. The animation of us trying to fight back but ultimately losing is so goddamn cool, and I really hope this is consistent with all the new jump scares added. I was really disappointed by the jump scares in the original game because they felt way too slow and dragged out. And although these ones seem a bit slow too, the sheer quality of them makes me not as disappointed this time around. There was actually this little newsletter given to us a few days ago explaining how the tone of this game is going to be much darker, figuratively and literally, than the original game. This little detail makes me really interested in how the characters will react to you in the world now. I am very ready to see how this is going to be executed. But on the topic of characters, I think I'd be hard-pressed not to mention the elephant in the room. What are you? So I have not been keeping up that much of FNaF's story since the release of Security Breach, but this goddamn dude has been the talk of the town in so many circles, and I really hope they finally just get around to explaining his deal. The Mimic is honestly a concept I find kinda interesting, but also very unnecessary. The entire thing just comes across as major damage control on Scott and Steelwool's end, especially when we had a character that was literally right there that could have saved us from all of this hassle. The basic rundown of this guy is that he's supposed to be the solution to the people being angry about how much William Afton has kept coming back. The Mimic being used as a way to retcon William Afton out of Help Wanted and Security Breach, and make the new villain just some random endoskeleton that's been around for more than half a century that somehow saw Afton commit the missing children's incident and gain the purpose of wanting to mimic that now. This is cool and all, and I think a lot of people would rather this be the approach taken taken over soul-infused computer viruses, but the poor writing of this series is what dug us into this hole in the first place. That's a completely different debate though. The only thing I ask about the Ruin DLC on this front is to just show us the Mimic. I am so tired of huge lore drops for these games just being explained away in books that barely anyone reads, that then have extremely important connotations to the base game. FNaF has always been amazing at show, don't tell, and I feel with the introduction of the novels, this very crucial part on how the story was presented was kinda lost. Giving us a proper explanation, or at the very least, a proper introduction to the Mimic inside of the DLC is something I believe needs to be a necessity to have the story be taken seriously at all anymore. But if this mask scene at the end of the trailer is to go off of anything, we should be able to expect this. Ruin honestly looks like it's shaping up to be a much more polished and cohesive experience than the base game was, which has even made me see some current detractors of Security Breach say it looks like a step in the right direction. Steelwool seems like they've been hard at work to right the wrongs the base game has made the fanbase feel, and I'm pretty optimistic that they will deliver a better experience here than they did in the base game. I'm glad it seems like they've been taking some genuine feedback from the community, and seem like they don't want to pull as many punches this time around. The fallout of the original game's launch back in 2021 was not fun to say at least if you were around to experience it, but for a lot of people, there's really nowhere to go but up at this point. Overambition doesn't seem to be a huge looming head this time around too. From all the very little wording this DLC has given us, as of right now, the goal on what to deliver seems pretty dead set in what it's trying to do, and that puts a lot of worries I have for this game at ease. I think a fair warning to anyone who's going into this game with one opinion or the other before playing should just understand that the game is not going to be for everyone no matter what. Security Breach, no matter how good or bad it was going to be, was fundamentally divisive for FNaF fans. And although I think a lot has healed since its initial release, just take the game at face value for how you believe it is and keep it at that. If you enjoy it, don't let people ruin that for you. And if you don't like it, that's okay as well. My personal belief is that this time around, I think we can be a little more optimistic than we originally were. Go in with reasonable expectations for a free DLC, and I don't think there'll be that much to be disappointed about. Anyways, Mapbot isn't going to be in this game. Screw this, 0 out of 10. I'm waiting for this game to launch so we can all collectively forget about it and make way for Garden of Banban 4. Jokes aside, I have been Dags, and until next time, see ya.